Hi everyone and welcome back. Okay, so today I've got a review for you. I'm going to be testing out the ARTEZA watercolour paper and the ARTEZA watercolour pencils. I've just been sent these by the company who asked me to do a review for them. I was happy to do that. I've seen a few product reviews on some of these materials before and they seem pretty good actually, so I was more than happy to receive these. I think it's very kind of ARTEZA as well to send them out, so thank you very much, it's greatly appreciated. Okay, so first we'll take a look at the ARTEZA watercolour paper and we'll do the pencils in just a minute. So as you can see there, we get 32 sheets in a pack and it's 12 by 9 inches, 140 pounds in weight or 300 grams. They come in a pack of 2 actually. You get 2 packs there for the very reasonable price of just £18.09. I think what they're doing here, making art affordable to everybody, is brilliant. It really is. And I'm really pleased to see companies doing that because, you know, artist quality materials, even student quality materials to a certain degree, can get very pricey. And it's good that manufacturers come on the market and price their products very competitively, so that, you know, people that haven't got a lot of money or students, first time artists that want to try watercolours and things like that, they can afford this stuff, no problem. You know, it's very competitively priced. Okay, so like I say, we've got 2 pads here in the pack for a really nice price. Now the paper itself, the grain texture, if I can get that to focus, you'll see it looks like canvas. It's quite nice actually. I mean, you might like it, you might not like it, I don't know. I quite like it. And the other side, it's quite a bit smoother. A little bit of texture there, but it's not got that canvas grain pattern. It's more like a hot press watercolour paper on the other side. So what I've done, I've painted 3 very quick loose paintings, and I've recorded it and I've sped the video up so you've not got to sit through all 3 of them. Not that they took me long. I mean, when I say paintings very loosely. I mean, these are experiments. I just taped some paper to the board and I literally just saturated the paper, threw some paint on there and just done some quick impressions of landscapes just to test the paper. And I did find a few little faults with it, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But let's take a quick look at these videos and see the paintings that I've done and how well the paper performs. So for the first painting, I really put the water on there really heavy, really saturated the paper. And as you can see, I'm going in there with the paint now, applying several layers while it's still wet. It stayed wet for quite a while. You've got quite a lot of working time with this paper, which is a good thing, particularly if you like wet into wet painting. And you can see the paint really, you know, diffuses well into the paper, gives some nice soft effects, and for more sort of dry brush in the foreground there, there was no problem with that at all. And I found that I could get nice fine detail on there. You can scrape the paint off while it's still damp. You know, it comes off nice and clean, and like I say, you've got quite a long working time with this paper. It stays damp for quite a while and allows you to put quite a lot of paint on there. And again, working with a rigger brush there, I had no problem at all with the detail. So the first painting went really well and I was really impressed with the paper and I loved the effects that it gave. Now I went for a similar kind of painting with this, and I'm just sponging out there with a tissue for the clouds. Now this is where the problem starts, because you can kind of see those marks there in some of the clouds, you know, after I'd sort of pushed on the paper with the tissue. Now the paper does seem very fragile and it does start to bobble up a little bit, and it doesn't like much working on once it's been soaking for a while. You're okay if you act quick while it's still wet and get the paint on there very quick, but if you're working on it while it's still damp, the surface of the paper will start to lift up. It just started to happen a little bit there in those trees. You can just kind of see a few little dots there, but it did dry out okay. And again, the dry brush textures that I was able to get in the foreground were really easy to do. It's a very nice grain texture on this paper. It does work really well. Okay, so the third painting, I thought I'd try that cloud thing again with the tissue, sponging out with the tissue, just to see if it was a fluke or if it happened again, and it did happen again. And I tried this several more times on other paintings and the same thing happened. So if you kind of press on the paper while it's still wet, it's going to kind of scuff the surface a little bit and push the pigment in there, and you're not going to be able to get it out. Now if you notice in the centre of the trees there's that very dark blob of paint. That's not actually a blob of paint, it's actually where I pressed a bit too hard with the brush and it moved the surface of the paper, and all the pigment is kind of soaked in there and left a darker patch. So that was a bit of a problem. You know, the surface of the paper is actually starting to lift up if you press a bit too hard with the brush while it's still damp or something like that. But anyway, I decided to try and repair it, and lifting out the paint with a damp brush, the paint lifted okay, but it's not as easy as like arches or something like that. It left dark lines around the edges, so it's quite difficult to repair. So I decided to do the first experiment with the watercolour pencils and just you know, just play around with them over this area of the trees, which was already ruined anyway. And I was really surprised. I mean, they picked up the texture of the paper. It kind of made it look a bit like an oil painting. It was quite difficult actually to use the watercolour pencils on this paper, I have to be honest, but as soon as I started to use the water brush there and turn them more into paint, there was no problem whatsoever. But like I say, the texture from the pencils, it's too linear. It follows the pattern, you know, the linear pattern of the paper too much, and I couldn't really get a very nice foliage texture with the pencils. So wetting it was definitely the answer, because the paint will move in and around the grooves of the paper, and I lost that kind of linear look to the foliage to a certain degree. But I had no problems with working the pencils over there, pressing hard on the paper. When the paper's dry, it's very strong, very tough. You can work on it with dry media, no problem. It's just when it's wet that you have to be very careful, because it will bobble up easy. And I will do a little demonstration and give you a close-up of exactly what I mean when these videos are finished. But you can see the watercolour pencils, they performed really well. But I have got another video to show you in more detail the watercolour pencils, because they are actually very nice. Okay, so let's take a look at what's really going on with this paper now in real time. I'm just going to put some water on there, just in an area, one small area. I'm just going to get a little bit of paint, and while that paper is still wet, I'm going to work the paint into it. And if you put it on quickly, look, it goes on fine, no problems whatsoever. But if I wanted to go in there while the paper's still wet and start to work additional colours in there, or just for whatever reason, add more brush strokes in there, you can kind of see now the paper, look, at this point is starting to produce little tiny crumbs, little, I don't know if you can see them. It's bobbling up, and the more I rub on that, the more these bits are coming up. I'll just pull that closer to the camera so you can see what I mean. Can you see that? Look, if I just get the brush again, look, these bits. The paper surface is lifting up, or the sizing on there is lifting up, and it's made a real mess on there. Now that's a real shame, because like I mentioned as we were watching the videos, you've got a nice long working time with this paper while it's wet. So that's going to lend itself perfectly for applying lots of colours into the wet area, you know, while it's still wet, applying additional colours and keep working in there and getting all sorts of lovely effects. But the fact that the surface of the paper is peeling up won't allow you to do that. So if you're very quick with your washes and you don't keep, you know, going over the same area with your brush strokes while it's still wet, you'll be absolutely fine with this paper. But I hope Arteza sees this video and I hope they correct this. And I'll tell you why, because I actually love working on this paper. I think for wet into wet style hake brush painting or loose impressionistic painting, it's fantastic. It gives some really lovely effects with wet into wet painting, and even just regular painting. It's a really nice paper to work on, it really is. But it's just such a shame that the surface is lifting. Now I don't know if I've got a bad batch or something. This might be a one-off, because other videos that I've seen, this hasn't happened. When I've seen other reviews on this paper, nobody else has seemed to report this problem. So like I say, you know, I hope Arteza watch this video. They might get back to me and say, yes, you know, you've obviously got a bad batch, we'll send you another pack and you'll have no problems, and then I'll review it again for you, and then we can put this all behind us, as it were. But it's such a shame, because the paper is great value. It really is great value. Plus you've got two surfaces to work on. You can paint on both surfaces, because I've done it, and get really lovely effects with both. Now when it comes to buckling and cockling and that kind of thing, it's no different to any other £140 weight paper. Yes, it buckles a little bit, but like I say, nothing more than you'd expect with anything else. So I mean, that wasn't a problem. So everything else, you know, it ticks all the boxes everywhere apart from this. And as the paint's drying out, the water's drying out, you can kind of see those darker spots even more now. Look, that's actually the surface of the paper, all in little tiny bits there in the wash. So such a shame, because like I say, it does tick all the boxes, you know, price wise, quality wise, the way it performs. I would buy this paper, no hesitation. But unfortunately, because of that, I'll still use this paper, and I'm very happy and grateful that I've got it. I mean, I can still use it for very quick wet into wet paintings where I'm not rubbing the brush in the same area, you know, many times while it's still wet. And I think that's really all you could use this paper for. You know, light washes, that kind of thing, you'll be fine with that. Okay, so we'll take a look at the watercolour pencils now. Okay, so the watercolour pencils, 72 watercolour pencils, artist quality, rich and vibrant colours, and it says expert there. I think they do a cheaper quality range than this. They also make just regular coloured pencils as well. Now the price for a set of 72, again on the English website, £24.09. Great price, isn't it? What a fantastic price. So we'll just open them up and we'll take a look at them. You get a really nice strong tin, by the way. It's not one of those flimsy ones which a lot of the pencil manufacturers seem to be using these days. Although saying that, these trays are a little bit thin, I must admit, but hey, you know, at that price, you can't grumble. In fact, let me turn this round, and we'll get them all in on the same screen now. So we've got 3 trays of pencils in there. And the first thing you'll notice is that the barrels are all coloured the same as the leads. I always prefer that with coloured pencils. Although the other set of watercolour pencils I've got are Derwents, I've had them for 10-15 years. All the barrels are all the same colour, and you just get the cap, which is the colour of the lead. I'd much prefer this. It's so much more easy to use. You can be a lot faster with your colour selection. You know, if you're working in a bit of a funny light, or you've got shadows cast on your desk over half the tin of your pencils, and you can't see the caps of them or something like that, you literally have to sort of pick each one up to have a look to see if it's the right colour that you want. But when they do the colour, the whole colour over all of the casing of the pencil there, I think it makes for a much more enjoyable experience and much easier to use. And I prefer all my coloured pencils to be like this if possible. Now the pencils themselves, they are absolutely perfect in every way. I haven't found any faults with them, any leads that weren't centred properly. They're all really nicely made, and the lettering on there is nice and big. They really are a joy to use, you know, out of the tin. You can see the colour there, nice bold print, and you'll probably notice that that's got a little star on it there. That's the light fast rating. We've got, I think it's between 1 and 5 stars there, 1 being the most light fast and 5 being the least light fast. I know that's a bit of a funny way round to do it, but that's the way they do it. And who am I to argue? But at least, you know, they've put it on there. We've got a pigment number there as well, should you need. And we've also got a little symbol there, little water brush there to show they're a watercolour pencil. They're a hexagonal barrel, gloss finish. I've actually sharpened that one in electric sharpener. I've sharpened several of them actually in the electric sharpener. None of the leads broke at all. They do come, let me find one which I haven't sharpened. I've kind of used them all actually, so just to do swatches with, but they kind of come with a flat tip on the end there, sort of factory sharpened. Not too sure what the wood is. I think it might be cedar, I'm not too sure, but like I say, I've not had any problems with splintering or cracking of any wood, or in fact I've had no problems whatsoever with these pencils. I can't believe how good these really are. They're absolutely fantastic. I've done a bit of a swatch there of all the colours. Let's put it that way, it's going to be easier. And you can see straight away that the colours are very, very strong. Not what you'd expect from, you know, coloured pencils at this price point. You expect them to be underpigmented, you know, not very strong, not very smooth and all the rest of it. But when you're working with them, they are very smooth, very strongly pigmented. They're just very nice to use all round. As soon as you use one, you really feel like you're using a really high-end artist quality pencil. I was really surprised. I mean, this is done on Buckingford paper, so it's got some texture on there. You know, it's a watercolour paper, so you can kind of see that what I've done, I shaded out the pencil dry, and then half of it I wet and pulled the water and the colour across. So I've got a little bit of texture on the first part, just showing the watercolour paper there. But even when it's wet, you know, it's still giving lovely strong colours. And with a little bit more water you can get these lovely light washes, these really nice kind of pastel effect colours there. I was so impressed with these. They're just, I mean, what can I say? They're absolutely fantastic. So I've done a little short video for you. Again, it's a time lapse. It's one of just a little butterfly sketch, and I've done it using only these pencils. I've done the drawing in ink to start with, and then the whole process was done using these pencils, and then right at the end I used just a little bit of white paint just for the details. And what I've done, I've used a combination of the water brush and wet the end of the pencil almost like it's a watercolour pen, and I've used it in that way. I've used the pencils straight in the water, you know, that's on the paper, to get some really strong dark tones there. And I've also used the pencils right at the end, just dry, like they're normal coloured pencils. And all of the methods that I tried, the pencils performed brilliantly, no matter what I'd done. In fact, I really enjoyed using these just as ordinary pencils. Other watercolour pencils that I've used, I've not really enjoyed using them as just coloured pencils. They feel a bit, well, they don't feel like nice, waxy, creamy coloured pencils. They feel a bit, well, they feel different, don't they? They feel a bit funny. But these just feel like you're working with, you know, a high quality coloured pencil. They're very waxy, very smooth, really nice to use. So okay, let's take a look at the video and see how they performed. Okay, so the black areas there that you can see, that's just ink. But you can see, look, how nice and transparent and clean looking the washes are when I'm just dipping the water brush there on the tip of the pencil, producing some lovely watercolour effects there, no problem at all, and layering as well, no problem with that. I must just quickly mention as well, quick shameless plug here, this demonstration is over on my Patreon channel, and it's all in real time, it's not sped up or anything. Full length demonstration there for you should you be interested. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, back to the pencils. So you can see I'm applying lots and lots of layers there, just building those layers up gradually, and occasionally just dipping the tip of the pencil in there while the paper's still wet, just to get some really nice dark tones going. Obviously I'm letting the paper dry between the layers there. You can actually lift the pigment quite easily if you want to, just with clean water, no problem with that at all. Overall, I'm really impressed with the pencils, you know, the way they perform, both wet and dry, and it's hard to find fault with them in any way at all, to be honest. I really enjoyed using them. I'm really going to look forward to using them even more in the future as well. So using the pencil dry there now, again I managed to get several layers on there before there was any clumping or anything like that, and they lay down really smoothly, no grittiness to them at all, and like I say, the pigments are very strong. It's so surprising how strong some of the colours actually are. So just a few final touches there with the white paint. And that's our little sketch completed. Okay, just a couple more things to mention before I finish. I should have actually mentioned this right at the start actually. You probably noticed that the order in which the colours are laid out don't really make too much sense. That's how they came, like that. I haven't altered the order of them at all, but I will be doing that. Yeah, and again, that's entirely up to you. You know, if you get a set, the order that you put them in, or if you leave them like this, whatever. But I can actually see from the swatch card that I made some really nice landscape colours there. So I think what I'm going to be doing is probably making 2 trays, or maybe 1.5 trays of just all of my favourite landscape colours in there. Now, as I was looking at these colours, I thought to myself that it's actually a very comprehensive set of colours here. You really don't need, you know, any more than this, because if you're a landscape painter like me, you'll find some really nice colours in here. And I've always found that a little bit challenging with other manufacturers. Some of the greens that they make are pretty awful, and they don't make enough selection of greens and green shades. But some of the greens in here are really nice and landscapey, you know, natural looking greens. I'll just bring the swatch card in again. And we'll just take a look. I mean, I should have written the names of them down actually. I've just put the number. But some of these greens are going to work. That one's not particularly nice there, but the rest of them, the majority of them in fact, are really nice, you know, landscape greens. And we've got some nice greys and earth tones there. Okay, we've got a lot of reds and pinks and things like that. But that's why I think it's a very nice comprehensive set, because if you're a floral artist or something like that, you've got a really nice selection of colours there. Or if you're into portraits, figure drawing, that kind of thing, there's a few nice skin tones there, you know, and other nice colours, you know, to make a really nice palette for whatever you're doing. I think it's a very nice colour selection, very well thought out, but it's like I say, it's a bit strange that they came in this order. And if anybody out there knows why they come in this order, let me know, because even after swatching them, I looked at them, I thought, have we got some sort of cool colour, warm colour thing going on here, warm shade, light shade, and I couldn't make sense of why the colours are laid out like that. But it's like I say, it's not a problem at all, is it really? You just alter them to the selection you want. Now if I just put these back and I'll show you the bottom of the tin, you'll actually see that sure that's shut properly. That's it. You actually see that they're laid out more in sort of a rainbow spectrum, I guess. Almost more of a logical way of looking at the colours there. And I think what I might do is probably lay the colours out like this, or like I say, make a kind of a landscape palette up. But you can see in that section there, look at those lovely landscape colours there. All those lovely greens, that's fantastic. That's what I like to see in a set of coloured pencils. And some of, I'm not going to name names or anything, but some of the big names out there, you don't get this lovely selection of natural greens. You really don't. You have to sort of buy the 120 set and things like that to get the full selection of these nice greens. So I think that's really good. I think it's a really good colour selection there, regardless of what your style of painting is. Now the last thing to mention, unfortunately, at the time of making this video, Arteza are not making open stock. They're not selling individual pencils, which is a shame. I think they should, and maybe they will do in the future. Who knows? But like I say, at the minute, unfortunately, if you run out of one of these colours, you can't buy a replacement. I think that's a little bit of a downside, really. But I think at that price, you could buy another set, couldn't you, if you run out of a few of your favourite colours. At that price, £24 and 9 pence for 72 pencils. It's incredible value for pencils of such good quality. Totally impressed. 10 out of 10 to Arteza for making these. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting a set of the the ordinary pencils now, just to try them, just to see if they're the same sort of excellent quality as these. So there we go. So that was the review of the Arteza watercolour paper and the Arteza watercolour pencils. Hope that's been helpful to you. Thanks very much for viewing, and take care everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, just before I go again, I will leave product links in the description below if you're interested. Okay, take care everybody. Bye for now.